Hey, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you, Al?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. Really appreciate it.
Fantastic.
Really
My
appreciate you.
pleasure to be here. My pleasure to be here, mate.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for joining us here on the Allen and Aaron Sports Talk Radio Show. And for those who don't know, this is Brad Vocale. Definitely a pleasure to meet you. So you're the cousin. A lot of people don't realize this, but you're the cousin of Lionel Rose, Australia's first Indigenous world boxing champ. What are your thoughts
Absolutely.
about Lionel?
Yeah, well, he was my hero. He was born in a little country town called Druin, about an hour and a half out of Melbourne, and I was born in another country town called Orbost, which is about 3 hours out of Melbourne, 2.5 hours out of Melbourne. So we had a little bit to do with each other prior to that. I was boxing as an amateur, and of course Lionel was a professional. We all moved to Melbourne. Lionel moved to Melbourne with a couple of my other cousins. One was called Harry Hayes, who was the former Australian flyweight champion and the British Commonwealth flyweight champion at Empire title at the time, Empire title. Harry moved to Melbourne as well, another guy, and they moved in 1963. We moved down in 1964, and we sort of went out separate ways then, Alan, but all the time he still called out to see mum and dad, and we caught up a lot together. And I got over and sparred him a couple of times in the gym, which was, probably about 20 minutes drive from home. And I went my way. I even fought a couple of guys that trained in his gymnasium, believe it or not. Yeah. And the worst part was they beat me.
Wow.
Overall, it was a great relationship we had with Lionel, and he won the world title from fighting Harada on February 27, 1968 in Tokyo in Japan at the Nippon Budokan Stadium. And there's just a bit of a saying, Alan, that when Lionel left Melbourne to fly out, he flew out a black kid with a dream. And that's what it was. Just an Aboriginal kid leaving Melbourne on a dream to go and fight for a world title. No one gave him the chance of winning. No one knew anything about the great fighting Harada. He came back 3 weeks later, a national hero. 150,000 people met him along the side of the streets. There was 250,000 people lining the way from Tullamarine, from Essendon Airport in Melbourne through to the city where he had a civic reception and stuff like that. He became a hero overnight. He was always my hero anyway. I loved the guy in not only the way that he fought, because I mimicked everything he did. I copied his style, his right hand, his left hook, and triple left jab. I did all that. But as a human being, he was an incredibly decent human being. And that was one of the nicest things there. And a lot of people sort of came out and said at the time, hey, Lionel, what have you done for your people? This is amazing. Did you do it for your people? He said, no, mate. He said, I didn't do it for my people. He said, I did it for my country.
Yeah.
He said, and whether, I'm Aboriginal, but I'm Australian. And that was something that resonated with me and has stayed with me for a lot of times, because today, there's a lot of movement here. A lot of people don't like the, Australia Day. They want to change that date. They don't like this. It's Invasion Day and all of that stuff, because Captain Cook came and discovered us all those years ago. But Lionel was never like that. He was just, he's Australian and he's a proud Australian, and I'm the same. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, that's amazing. He got such a great reception there. How did he deal with, 150,000 people receiving him? How did he handle that?
Well, it's quite amazing, because when they were taxiing in on the aircraft into Essendon Airport, he said to his trainer, he said, gee, there must be something going on. Maybe Elvis or somebody like that's coming here to, he said, all these people, he said, oh, gee, they both looked at the mirror and said, oh, that's strange. I don't know why that is. And what they didn't realise, the next minute, no one was allowed out of the plane. Lionel had to come out of the plane first, red carpet, all the dignitaries there, and he was really overtaken by it. He's a very shy guy at the time. He was incredibly shy. He was a 19-year-old Aboriginal kid from a country town, lived in a big city, the big smoke of Melbourne. Imagine not being a big smoke Melbourne compared to sort of like New York or London or anything like that. But he dealt with it very, very well, because he was never one of those guys where I am. He was never an I am type of guy. He was one of those guys that we are. We're all in this together. We're all together. You're black, I'm white, but hey, brother, we all bleed red. And that was the way that he looked, and that was something that inspired me. apart from his natural boxing ability, what he did outside the boxing ring, I was fascinated. And I am the person that I am today simply because of Lionel.
Wow, that's definitely a great attribute to have. And nowadays, a lot of boxers, when they get a taste of success, it really changes them in a way where they kind of forget the smaller guy and where the grassroots. What advice can you give some of the younger boxers that maybe get that title, that belt?
Oh, absolutely. And of course, Lionel had relative success and a reasonable amount of support as he came through. You know, he won the Australian bantamweight title in 1965, and then he moved on, and he really fought no one. So when it came around to fighting Harada for the world title, he was number 8 in the world. He had beaten no one. And the story that goes with it, and I know this story, I can tell it to you in my sleep, that Harada was supposed to fight a really red-hot Mexican by the name of Jesus Pimentel. And Pimentel was a legend. And Pimentel, I believe, broke his wrist in training. So they needed someone else to fight to defend that title. We had the secretary of the Australian Boxing Federation, again, which inspired me, another one. And his name was Kevin Hayes. And I became friends with Kevin Hayes later. And it was my goal when I read in the paper, Kevin Hayes just happened to be in Japan at the time and heard about the breakdown of the fight and said, hey, listen, we've got a guy in Australia by the name of Lionel Rose. I'm sure they'd be interested in taking the fight. So they hurriedly looked up the ratings and said, Lionel Rose, oh, he's number 8 in the world. Oh, he's never beaten anybody. The highest rated fighter that he fought was a guy by the name of Rocky Gattalari. And Gattalari had fought for the world flyweight title against Salvatore Baruni here in Sydney in 1964 and got knocked out in 13 rounds. Well, Lionel had beaten Gattalari on December the 11th, 1967 for the Australian title. And so that was probably the highest rated fighter that he actually got to fight. He fought an American by the name of Ronnie Jones. He fought a couple of Mexicans and stuff like that, Rudy Corona and a few of those older sort of guys. And so, you know, he was really an unknown, an unknown product, you know. So, and then when Kevin Hayes went to Japan and said, hey, look, we've got this guy, you know, he'd be willing to fight. They looked and said, well, how good would this be? Fighting Harada was former world flyweight champion, Olympic gold medalist, a former world flyweight champion, struggled to move up. So he moved up to bantamweight, 8 stone 6, 118 pounds, and he was struggling to make that weight as well. So they said, why don't we get hold of this young Lionel Rose guy? We'll belt him, we'll keep our title, we'll vacate that title, then move up to featherweight, and we'll become a 3-time world champion. No one had ever done, not even the great Cassius Clay. Muhammad Ali had done it at that stage. No one had. So he's got, what a great idea. Lionel got paid 8,000 Australian dollars for that fight, which is probably about 5,000 US dollars, I'd say. You know, So it was back in 1968. It was a lot of money. Yeah. So as I sort of said, he left here just a black kid with a dream, and he came back a national hero. And of course, he changed the face of Australian boxing. He truly did. The gymnasiums were full. Everyone wanted to be a part of it. You know, he became the singer. He became the motor racer. You know, everyone wanted to be with him, but that wasn't him. Lionel was just happy to go back to his hometown, be fishing, you know, shooting a rabbit or two here and there, and just hanging out with the cousins and with the brothers and stuff like that. You know, but he didn't. That never took his focus away. Later on, he struggled with weight. He had a massive amount of weight. But look, when you see, he had an American promoter by the name of George Parnassus, and Parnassus was a very intelligent man and a very good man too. He paid Lionel a big fee. He took Lionel to America. He fought Jose Medel at the Inglewood Forum. And he beat Medel over 10 rounds. And Medel was not an easy fight. He was a good fighter. And then he defended the title. Well, he firstly defended the title against another Japanese fighter who Lionel beat on points. But then after that, he went and fought Medel. He came back, and then he fought the great Chuchu Castillo in Mexico. And that went 15 rounds. Lionel got knocked down in the 11th round in that fight. And he got up off the floor, and it was a close fight. The Mexicans didn't like what actually happened there, and they burnt the place down. You know, I don't know if you're aware of this, you know, and they burnt the place, or tried to burn the place down. And Kirk Douglas was there, and a few other people. And Lionel became, you know, a bit of a hero, a cult hero because, even Elvis said, hey, I like this guy, can we get to meet him? So, Lionel's got a photo shaping up with Elvis, and it was, the pride. He gave me and my daughter that photo 35 years ago,
Yeah.
So that was one of the things. So he all of a sudden, he put, not only did he put Australian boxing on the map, he actually put Australia on the map without really knowing it, and he was, back here, we have a procession here once a year called Moomba. And the Moomba procession is in Melbourne, and Lionel was King of Moomba. He won Australian of the Year. He won an MBE off the Queen. He might have been 20 minutes late to meet the Queen, but that's him, No, he's on blackfella time, So and that was it, yeah. So he was my hero, and he inspired me along. And as an amateur, in 1968 was a good year for me. I won my first amateur state title, and so it was sort of very good. But it was good for a lot of people, what he did for the sport.
Yes, he was. It definitely helped you out tremendously. You actually became the secretary and president of the Australian Boxing Federation. Talk about that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I just mentioned before, Kevin Hayes was the secretary of the then Australian Boxing Federation.
Yeah.
It's now the Australian National Boxing Federation. And when I read about Kevin Hayes, a couple of little things have happened in my career that I've been very, very taken back with, and I wanted to be that same person. So when I realised what Kevin Hayes had done, he was there and he put that fight together. And I said to myself, then I was 14 years of age. I want to be the secretary of the Australian Boxing Federation. I want to be able to do good things like that for our fighters. I was 14 years of age. I had no idea what was going to ever happen. And then a little bit later on, I used to, after I left the amateur ranks, I became a professional. I fought on an iconic TV program here in Australia called TV Ringside. And that really set the tone for boxing in Australia. That went for many, many years, from 1969, I think, right through to about 1978 or something like that. And that was an iconic show. And I used to go over there because TV was black and white then, Alan. And I used to, when I would go to the fights, I'd be around there and I'd be standing there watching the commentators. And one of the old commentators, his name was Merv Williams. Many people in Australia will remember Merv Williams. He had all these little sayings like, oh, he's the boy with a wheelbarrow. He's got the job ahead of him, and sayings like that. And of course, I thought, oh, wow, I want to be a TV presenter when I grow up as well. I was 15 years of age, so, and I turned professional here when I was 15 years and 7 months. You can't do that today. And so I was very, very fortunate, and God's blessed me with many, many talents, and so one of those talents was, I moved from Melbourne up to Queensland onto the Gold Coast up here, and I was involved in the boxing. After I retired in 1972 as a professional, and then I built a business, and I got married and things like that. And I was never away from the sport, but I wasn't as actively involved as what I was in those days. So after that, I came up here, and then I met a good mate of mine who was a boxer, who actually won the British Empire title off my cousin, who I actually also fought in the amateurs. And he sort of said, what do you do? Oh, come to the meeting. So I went to the meeting, and then about probably 3 years later, the opportunity was there for me to become the National Secretary of the Australian Boxing Federation. It's something that I'd aspired to. I believed that I could do the job very well. I did that for about 4 years, created a lot of opportunities, changed a few of the rules and things like that, and generally tried to make the sport a lot healthier and a lot safer than what it was. And I'm not sort of trying to say that anyone else didn't do that, but I was passionate about that job. I raised a lot of money for our organisation. Champions who weren't defending their titles, I gave them opportunities to defend their title and just got the whole thing churning over again. At that same time, an opportunity arose for me to become a commentator with Fox Sports Television here in Australia. And so that was, what was that? That was about 1998, I think it was, 97 or 98. And so I was doing commentary and colour commentary for Fox Sports, and that really set a tone for me, because a lot of people got to know me. A lot of older people and friends that I grew up with had seen me for years, saw me, wow, look at Brad on TV now, But to me, it was a great avenue to be able to spread the word of our great sport. It wasn't about trying to tell everybody how good I am and what colour I am and what I have done and what I am and what I will be and what I'm going to be. And all that. No, it was an opportunity for me to explain the rules. And when I was commentating with the head commentator there, he would say, "Oh, look, there's a cut that's happened. What's going to happen now?" I said, "Well, under those rules, if the referee rules that it was a clean scoring punch, well then, the red corner's going to win the fight. If it's not, we're going to go to the scorecards because we're after the 4th round or the 5th round or whatever." And it encouraged a lot of people in the fact that it gave them that little bit of knowledge that they understand. The rules of boxing are obscure at the best of times, don't they? For the average fight fan sitting home watching TV, they are obscure. They don't know what's happened. What's this referee doing? Oh, why did he stop the fight? So I took it upon myself to sort of expand that amount and sort of say, well, the reason he stopped the fight is because of this, or he got a good right hand and he was hurt, he hasn't recovered, the referee's protecting the fighter. And I'll let you know that the referee is not there for his good looks. He's simply there for the welfare and safety of the fighter and for the confirmation of the competition rules, for the application of the competition rules. 2 reasons. That's what we're there for. We're not the star of the show. We are just doing our job. A good referee is, as we see, it's never seen or heard. He's done his job.
Yes, and you became a referee. And what are some of the things that trigger you to say, you know what, this is time for me to step in as a referee and stop the fight? What is it that you're actually looking for specifically?
Well, look, stopping a fight is an absolute art. It really is an art. We get lots of referees stop fights far too early. And there's that old saying, you're better off to stop a fight 1 punch too early than you are 1 punch too late. But at the end of the day, it's all about the mechanics of what we're doing as a referee. We're not just prancing around and looking, we're on the TV to make sure that my hair's right and all this sort of stuff. No, we're there for the welfare and safety of the fighter. I look at a fighter, I never take my eyes off it. Positioning is the most important thing. Being a referee physically is not a demanding job. It's not hard physically. We've got plenty of us guys who are a bit beefy. We've been eating too many macas or chicken or something, fried chicken or whatever, and we've got guys who are very thin and nimble and can move around. And I also think ex-fighters have also got that affiliation with the ring where they know their way around a boxing ring, and that's important for a referee as well. So, and the other thing is for a referee, knowing your rules is one thing, but knowing when to apply those rules is another thing again. So when it comes down to a fighter getting hurt, I look at a fighter, just 1 punch can do the damage. 1 punch can change the whole dynamics of that fight. You might win 8 of the first 9 rounds of a 10-round fight and then get hit with 1 good shot and you're stunned and you can't defend yourself. I have an obligation to you, your family, your friends, your wife, your children at home, to make sure that you walk out of that ring as healthy and as safe as you walked in. If you don't, I'm not doing my job. And I always say to my fighters, hey, listen, I know I'm going to do my job. You do yours. You do the fighting. You listen to your corner, and to whatever your corner tells you what to do, you do it. I'm going to do my job, and I want you to do yours. Right? So whatever happens in there, I wish you all the best of luck. God bless you, and all the best of luck. May the best man win. And whatever happens in the boxing ring stays in the boxing ring. So once we get all of those little things out of the way, and as you know, fighters, when they're in there, they're all nervous, and there's nervous tension, there's anxiety and stuff like that. Some are really, really confident. Some I'm just going to go in there and I'm just going to bash this guy. Doesn't always work that way, as we know. But the basic thing is that we need to be able to work with the fighters, not against them. So knowing our rules is one thing, knowing when to apply them is another, but also understanding what fighters are going through. So we look at a fighter's mannerisms. 1 minute he's aggressive and he's throwing out his lead, he's going after his opponent, gets hit with a good shot. Next minute he's just becoming a passenger. He's not throwing punches back, he's not aggressive, he's just trying to survive that round or trying to survive that fight. They're the guys that we need to look after. There's no disgrace in losing, and there's no disgrace, whether you get stopped or anything like that. And I explain that to the guys. I want them to be able to fight another day. And it's really important that there's a lot of mismatches that happen in this sport, as you know. And so when I sort of see, I look at a guy and I look at his mannerisms, I look at his defense, I look at his hands and stuff like that, how confident he is, I say, this guy shouldn't be in with this guy. So I'm going to take extra care. I'm not going to go in with a preconceived idea that you're going to win this fight, because it doesn't happen like that. But I'll go in with an idea and sort of say, I don't think he is as capable of looking after himself as his opponent is. So I'm that mentally aware. Mental awareness is your best friend inside the ring, and concentration. Concentration and mental awareness. That's all you need inside the boxing ring. And if you can do those things, then you will be a good referee. Of course, time takes its toll, because we stress a little bit as well. We're nervous, and especially if it's a big event where there's a lot of people there might be 10,000 people. That's 20,000 eyes watching you, So, or television cameras where it's right around Australia or right around the world, which has been there. So we have all of those little stresses to worry about. And some referees can be very, very confident. A little bit brash and stuff like that. They often get found out. So if we don't work as hard as what the fighters do to prepare themselves inside the boxing ring, as a referee, I study my rules. Even today, after 28 years, I still study my rules. I look at the rules, and rules are often changing, as we know, but the interpretation of rules is there. So, we've got to look at those little things and enact. I'll be reading a rule a couple of days before a fight, saying, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I do know it, but oh God, I never thought about it. And inevitably, little things like a double knockdown, that happens. It's so rare, but it does happen. It's happened to me once in the, thousands of fights that I've done. It's happened to me once. And then all of a sudden it's okay, knockdown, right, bang. And then 2, 3, and I'm looking at both fighters, and I'm still doing it was a single knockdown where I'm looking at the fighter's eyes, I'm looking at his mannerisms, I'm looking at his ability to stand up, and you'll see how they feel, and I'm looking at both times. And if one fighter's down and he's still down, I'll say 8, neutral corner, 7, 8, and then if he doesn't make it, he gets counted out. How many referees actually know this? And yes, they all know it, but do they know how to apply it? It's an obscure rule. It doesn't happen very often. So, but we need to have that complete picture of everything. Same as bang, right at the same time the bell goes, ding, right?
Yeah.
The rule is a punch delivered with the knuckle part of the glove, the scoring part of the body, or right on the bell is agreed to be a positive. It's not a negative. So that's a positive punch, and if he's knocked down, the referee counts, right? And even though the bell is gone, the fighter still has to get up in order to do that. Otherwise, he's lost the fight. A lot of referees of that. That happens, and then all of a sudden, that's okay. Back to your corners. No. There's if the fighter's knocked down, he deserves a count. That 8-second protection count is the right for every fighter to have if he's hurt. So so there you go.
Yeah, is it frustrating sometimes when you do stop a fight and you feel as if you get criticized because it was too early or too late? Is it sometimes you feel like, what, this is just, I can't win for losing?
That inspires me. It really does. And I'll tell you why. I've spent, not just 28 years doing this job and wanting to be the very best Brad Vocale I can be, but, I want to be good. But I don't want to. The last thing I want to do is deprive a fighter of his ability to win a contest. A referee is there not to decide the winner, but we have a set of guidelines to protect each fighter. So if we have to enact our rule and bring our rule into place, and that we have to stop that fight, then that's so be it. We're just doing our job. And yes, whatever decision you make is going to impact on one fighter. He'll be unhappy about it, and so will his team and his supporters in the corner. The other team will be jumping for joy. So you're going to get accused of favoritism or bias or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I've had lots and lots of trainers and lots of parents come up to me and say, hey, I don't know your name, but mate, thanks for saving my son. Thank you for protecting my fighter. We didn't see what actually happened, but after everything stopped, the action stopped, and we went back into the corner, and the reality of it there, I could actually see the hurt. I could actually see that he wasn't fit and focused, to go on, but you did. You just saved my fighter. I said, well, I just did my job. I'm no hero. I just did my job, what I'm expected to do, and that is save your fighter from further punishment, unnecessary punishment. He can come back and fight again another day and maybe even be a better fighter as a result of it. But just being prancing around and worrying, not looking and lardy-darring around the boxing ring while fighters are getting seriously hurt, to me is an absolute misdemeanor. It's so bad, and this is where concentration and mental awareness comes in. You see a fighter, the reaction of that fighter, apart from so many other little things. But as we get going, you tend to just be a little bit blasé about it too, And I keep saying, I do lots of workshops and seminars to younger guys up here and say, listen, every fight, there is no two fights and no two fight promotions that are ever the same. They're never the same. No two fights are ever the same. You can fight me and punch holes in me for 2.5 rounds, and I just go bang, 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 2 or 3 quick punches, and the fight's over. In the reverse, against the run of play. Why does that happen? It's cruel. But as a referee, we need to be mentally aware of that and see that. And we can't sort of say, oh, gee, Alan was going so well, I'll let this go a little bit, I'll let this go again, because that damage that could be done in that short period of time, this brain of ours, sometimes I'm accused of not having one, but, so this brain of ours is really, really delicate. We have to protect it. Our sport is simple. If you and I are going and playing a game of golf and I miss the putt on the 18th, I might buy the beer or buy you a lunch or something. Yeah. I made a mistake. But in the boxing ring, you make a mistake, it's simple. You get hurt. And that's why we're there, so to alleviate. We're not going to stop a one-punch knockout or anything like that. We can never, be that. Well, we can, but it's very rare, But it's the accumulation of punches. That one punch, maybe 3 or 4 punches ago, did the damage, and those few little punches in the meantime are increasing the opportunity for a knockout there. And so we need to be mentally aware of that. So it's a really important thing that we need to look at, and I pride myself on doing that. So I pride myself on trying to look the best I can when I'm inside the box, even though I've got a big fat black dummy here, but
yeah.
I'm normally pretty fit, but I'm the fittest that I want to be is fit in the mind, fit with the training of all of the rules and regulations and the fact that I'm aware of what my responsibilities are. And if you can teach young guys, young girls, I teach a lot of young girls as referees as well. I'm a huge fan of women in boxing. A lot of people aren't, but I am. We're an equal opportunity sport. So why should we discriminate against women? Some of the best fights I've ever seen in my time have been women fights. They fight as well as the men. They're dedicated. They're professional. They give their all, and the crowd really like it. So and a lot of women actually love to come to the fights and watch another female fight. So these are little things. So I teach. I've got 3 women in. I have my own ring officials team here that we do a little bit of work with Thai boxing and amateur boxing as well. So when I'm not doing the professionals and commentary and things like that, I'm happy to work with the amateurs, and I do a lot of work with the amateurs, stuff like that. And they deserve quality officiating as equally as the professionals do. So they don't get paid. They're not as well known as some of the great fighters that we've got, but we don't know. In 5 years' time, one of them could be a world champion. We could have another Jeff Fennick, another Lionel Rose, or another, Rocky, whatever.
Yeah.
Don't know how these guys come. Another Mike Tyson. There's so many there. So these are the little things. And this sport is my life. You take the sport away from me and I'm going to die. It's as simple as that, So I'm 68 years of age in 2 weeks' time, and so I'm sort of pretty happy that I'm sort of still doing what I'm doing. But I love the sport. I'm passionate about it, and my journey is not over yet. It's a long way from over, because I want to be able to, when I leave this sport, I want to leave it in as good a position, in a better position than when I entered it. And that's something that I'm passionate about.
Oh, that's fantastic. And the state of boxing at this point, what do you think the state of boxing needs to advance and keep moving forward in a positive direction that's needed now in boxing?
I think, look, there's a number of things. Looking from a ring official's perspective, what we need to help the sport move forward is quality officiating. Unfair, decisions, we need to get rid of those there. Favoritism and bias. Now, in some decisions I see, I look at and I'm thinking, how could we come up with that decision? I even seen a fight the other day out of the United States. I watched it on DAZN, where I thought one guy, one young kid won it, but the other young kid won it, and he's a nice young kid too. But I thought, how can they come up with that? Even the commentators were critical of the fight, but I was watching it from 15,000 kilometres away, so
Yeah.
I can't really commentate, but I can't really what's that? But I look at it with the same thing here, that I sort of see that we've got so many decisions that really leave people scratching their heads and sort of say, oh my God, what's going on with this sport? Is it corrupt, or is it people taking payments or anything? And in all of the times in all of the countries I've ever been, like in Japan and Thailand and United States and Russia and Germany, I've worked in as well. No one has ever come and say, hey, Brad, here's a little bit of something on the side for you. I want to make sure my fighter wins. It's never happened. And if it ever did happen, I'd say, well, listen, you know what you can do with your little bit on the side, don't you? Sort of throw it right where it fits, But that's never happened. But what does happen a lot, and this needs to be eradicated as well. You might be the promoter of the fight, and then I might come along and say, oh, Alan, listen, it's Brad Vocale. I'm refereeing on your show. Look, mate, I'd like to bring my wife. Can I buy a ticket? I will always buy a ticket, always. But the promoter will say, Brad, it's okay, brother. No, bring your wife and bring a friend if you like. And look, I'll put them on a table, give them some drink and some food, everything like that. So, and I think, oh, what a nice guy. And he is a nice guy. But at the end of the day, the transition of power is that I owe him.
Yeah.
So, I'm refereeing his fighter, a guy that he's invested a lot of money into, bringing an opponent in, and he's investing that money for him to go from a state title, national title, regional title, maybe a world title. And all of a sudden, so I'm refereeing or I'm judging him, but all of a sudden I'm in debt to him. Why? Because he's given my wife or my brother a ticket to go to the fights. So therefore, that's an innocent little error, so that ring officials can make. Because all of a sudden, when it comes to saying, oh, that was a really close round between Alan and Brad. Gee, I think Brad won the round, but well, Alan's so-and-so, the promoters, I'll just give it to him. So therefore, I'm showing that favoritism and bias, which you can't do. You have to eliminate all of that out of your head. The other two judges on the other side of the ring don't have that same debt, if you like. They don't have that same commitment to say, well, he owes me nothing. I'm coming working on his show and I just get paid to do my job and I go away and I leave and that's it. I'm not sitting there having a beer with him after the show or anything like that, or, he didn't let my wife come in. So they're going to judge it 9-10 for the blue, while I'll judge 10-9 for the blue. So I'm going to be the odd one out. So basically we're going to get found out anyway. Do you know what I mean? So you're better off to eliminate that. That's from a ring official's perspective. To help to move the sport forward. From the boxer's perspective, I think that we need to just concentrate on not just collecting belts. A lot of boxers, they all want to win a belt. From the first fight to the last, they want to have a belt. Let's just concentrate on a career. It's not about where you start, it's where you finish, and what happens in between is very important. So if you're going to do good things for the sport and you're going to compete fairly and honestly, and you prepare yourself and you work hard at your trade, and you train hard, those rewards will come. The titles will come. The accolades and the recognition will come. Don't try and force it. So by having good fighters, and also for the trainers to be able to put back into the fighters what they're. A lot of the skills of the sport today have passed away with the older trainers. I met the great Eddie Futz once in Las Vegas, and what a beautiful man he was. I spent a lot of time with him while I was there, and he gave me so much information. We had dinner, we had breakfast, and he was a beautiful human being. The skills and the knowledge that Eddie had, it passed when he took them to the grave with him. I don't know if there was anyone else that he taught in the meantime, but I think we all have an obligation to sort of pass on the skills we do, like what I do with my refereeing and judging, and also the ethics and principles of our sport. They are part of what we do. So I pass those on as well. We don't ever bet on fights. We don't ever be seen, in a huddle with, the red corner or something like that, because the blue corner might be looking on and saying, oh, that's not a good look, So there's all those fairness and equity little things that we have to go through. So those are the things that make us that will make the sport better. Firstly, the look, the outside look of the sport, because people will sort of say, "Oh, I'm getting sick of this. This young kid fought his heart out. He's trained his heart out for 2 or 3 months in there, and he just got robbed, by those judges." Now, some of those judges I know are really good judges. We can all have an off night, but in some of these instances, I only say to myself, how could Brad judge that fight like that? He's either incompetent or he's doing the wrong thing, and either way, he should not be there. Send him back to teaching school, send him back to doing something. We can't say send him back to doing the novices again. Let's retrain him again. Let's spend some time and let's see his view. He might have had an argument with his wife. He could have he lost his job on a day before, and all these little mental issues that come into our brain as well. So basically, we need to sort of look at all those things, and we need to be able to have a complete team. When I say a complete team, I'm talking about referees, judges, timekeepers, supervisors, doctors, fighters, trainers, administrators, the whole lot. We need to be unbiased, show no favoritism, and the welfare and the benefit of the sport and the fighters is put above everything else. And if we can all do that, and we can all come together and get on that train that same way, our sport's just going to go zooming ahead like it used to be years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely great advice there. And one person that you got a chance to know and meet is a person we had on our show, Barry Michaels. You seem to admire him as a promoter. Speak about Mr. Michaels as being a promoter. What does he do so well?
Yeah, look, Barry, I grew up with Barry. I retired the year that he actually became a fighter. And at one stage, had I kept fighting, I probably would have ended up fighting him. So I dodged the bullet. And Barry and I are great friends, and we've worked together a lot. We've travelled a bit together. I took him over to Papua New Guinea with one of his fighters just a year or so ago, before the COVID, and they went over there. He was a big hit over there. But Barry, as a promoter, is very, very competent because what he did when he was fighting, he actually promoted a few of his own shows. So he's very much a grassroots, hands-on type of guy. And there's no flies on Barry, and there's no I ams about him. He is what you see is what you get. If he doesn't like it, he'll tell you, but he's not like that. He's just a lovely guy who will do everything for the sport and of course, try and make a living out of it, So he's only just recovering now from open heart surgery, or a bypass he actually had. So I spoke to him about 3 days ago to see how he's going. He's going really good. So he's trying to get back to doing what he normally does. But as a promoter, he's a good, fair promoter. He pays fighters what they should be paid because he knows when he was young, fighting, coming through the ranks, and a few fights when he was world champion in his first defence, he never got paid.
Yeah.
The promoter dogged him, and couldn't get paid, and so he's learned and he knows what it's like to endure those things. So yeah, he's a good guy in and out of the ring. I spend a fair bit of time with him. We talk often, and he's a really good guy. He's known worldwide. He won the IBF super featherweight title, and he defended it a couple of times as well. So and he's very well known here in Australia. So he's a good guy.
Hey, he's a great guy like himself. And one great guy that did help get this interview was top fan, Glenn Earnshaw, and he was a big fan of yours, and he would love to have 2 signed photos of you.
Oh, I'd love to. Golly, I didn't think I was that famous. but Glenn, I know Glenn does. I know he does a lot. I haven't had the opportunity of meeting yet. I really do look for the opportunity to meet Glenn, because what he is doing for our sport is amazing, because he's trying to put back into the sport what a lot of people take from the sport, and he's giving to the sport. He's trying to get recognition of across the board of not just fighters. And when we talk boxing, we talk about the competitors, don't we? We talk about heavyweight division, we talk about AJ, we talk about Fury, we talk about Wilder, we're talking now about Alexander Usyk, so when we're talking, but what about the people behind the scenes? What about the people propping them up? What about the guys in the gym who sweep the floor and, tidy up the mess and do all that? The unknowns. And then we've got, referees and judges and people on the support base, the support workers. We come in as referees and judges. We get there at 5 o'clock for a 6 o'clock show. We walk in, we sit down, put our gear down, and we're la-di-da around like Larry, we're doing it. But there's people been there for hours and hours setting up the ring, setting up the seats, setting up the ring official side of things like that. And I know because I do that myself, So I look at that and sort of say, hey, we've got such a support network behind it that don't get that recognition. That's something that I want to try and bring into the sport as well. I'm humble and acknowledge everyone. The girl selling the hot dogs behind the counter, or go and buy a glass of water or a cold beer or something after, and I treat everyone the same, and they recognise because they're all just doing a job, and we're not that big, we're not that superstarish that we can just sort of, be somebody and walk over them. No, because it's a very hard job from start to finish on any promotion, as you know.
Yes, absolutely. It definitely takes a whole village to go ahead and have a fight. And we're so glad that you joined us here on the Alan and Aaron Sports Talk Radio Show. How can fans keep in touch with you and keep up to what you're doing?
Look, pretty easy. I'm on Facebook. I have got an Instagram account, but I'm never on it. But I'm on Facebook, and I had almost 5,000 friends, and then there was a whole lot there that I really didn't know that I hadn't corresponded with for a long time. So I deleted a few, and now I've got a bit more room for a few more, So, so if anyone wants to contact me, you're welcome to contact me on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to get there. Send me a message on Messenger. I'm one of those guys. I'm everyone's friend. If you like boxing, I love you.
Oh, that's awesome. Definitely. I'm gonna make sure I make sure I send you a friend request there, and definitely.
And look, if there's ever anything I can do for you in this country, Alan, and for Aaron as well, mate, you only need to pick up the telephone or text me or something like that, and I'll gladly help with whatever I can, because I'm a servant of the sport. This is one thing where I've made myself not just coming in, and this sport's been great to me. As an amateur, it was good to me. As a professional, it was good to me. I didn't win any world titles. I was a failure of our family, because I only won a state title. All the rest won Australian and Commonwealth. My cousin Graham Porky Brook won the Australian title. He lost it to Barry Michael, and the Commonwealth title as well. And Harry Hayes won the British Empire title. Lionel the world title. I just won a Victorian state title, but it doesn't matter, mate, because we're all in the same sport, and so I'm a servant of the sport. So the people who just walk in, you might not even know them, but they're fans of the sport. They deserve to be, addressed correctly, spoken correctly. They ask a question, I'll answer that question as best I can, so that I can educate them as well. And that's what the sport's. I don't like the arrogance. I don't like the one-liners and the that sort of thing. I'm everyone's friend, and I just do it because that's my nature anyway. So as a kid, when I grew up, I was discriminated against badly, because firstly, my dad's Italian. He came to Australia when he was 4 years old, and my mum's Aboriginal. So could you imagine that there? When I moved to Melbourne, mate, all the kids didn't want to talk to a black fella, or Italian. Now I'm wrapped in my. If I was born again, I want to be exactly the same way I was. Yes, I was discriminated against, but I am the person I am today, with that inner strength and that desire and that sort of square up, that get even sort of type thing to make myself a better person because of whatever happened. Girls didn't want to go out with me; they wanted the blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy.
Oh, wow.
At the end of the day, I'm happy with my lot. I'm happy with what I've chosen, and I'm really good friends with everybody. And when people sort of say to me, "Hey, Brad, what nationality are you?" A few people have even said, "Oh, you've got to be a Kiwi, big front rower." I said, "No, mate. Well, what nationality are you?" I say, "I'm a Wagorigini." And they said, wow. "Wagorigini? Yeah, well, Italians are Wogs, and the Aborigines. I'm a black fella, and I take the piss out of myself a little bit. I'm not that not proud that I can't, sort of say, "Oh, if you're talking to me, you've got to call me this, you've got to call me that. How dare you sort of say, oh, you're a black fella?" No, mate, we're all the same people. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I look at it, and I love that, because common sense and friendship always works well together, doesn't it?
It sure does. Well said. And you didn't let some discrimination stop you. Still keep smiling. And absolutely. I really appreciate you saying that. And when I'm in your neck of the woods, I'll look you up, and I'm going to keep in touch with you for sure.
Please do, Al. I really look forward to and if anything you ever know that's over here, I'll stay in touch with you. Some, little news bits and pieces and stuff like that. I'll be more than happy to share it around. I do the same in America. I know quite a few people over there. I got married in America a couple of years ago in Vegas. I got Elvis to marry us in Vegas. We're still there, and of course we had a couple of friends come over there. Come to our wedding in Vegas, which was sort of really good. I know Bill Clancy down in South Carolina, and he just did a podcast last night. So it was wonderful. Yeah, so yeah, no, I love coming to the States. I've been there 12 times, mate. So I'll maybe look forward to coming over and catching up with you. But if you're in this country, mate, you got to let me know. You're welcome to come and stay with us and come and catch up. I'll show you around the whole place.
I'll hold you to that. I appreciate that. I will definitely do that. And let me know when you're in the States too.
Absolutely. I look forward to it, brother. All right. You take care, eh?
You take care of yourself.
Thank you for having me on. Yep,
oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much.
No worries.
God bless you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye now.